Hi everyone, this is Duncan from Rock and Reel Reviews, and I'm joined by Adrian from Northlane. So, your recent album Singularity has been out since March.
Yep.
It's been met with pretty much universal acclaim. Everyone seems to have really got behind it. How did you approach Singularity writing-wise, different from Discoveries, if anything?
Okay, yeah, good question. Our first record, Discoveries, was sort of written in a guitar tablature program called Guitar Pro.
Yeah.
And it's got like computer-generated guitar noises. It's very, almost sounds like video game music. Like it's very mechanistic, like the process with writing. But this time around with Singularity, our guitarist and songwriter Jonathan Dealey, he was jamming and writing songs on his guitar into like a recording session. So the process was much more natural, less numbers and, computer stuff, and more actual playing songs into the computer. So there's a way more of a human element to it.
Yeah.
And that was, the different approach we took on this record for sure.
The kind of album launch campaign that went with it was like a really cool viral thing. Was that something the band planned? Or was there maybe label involvement or something?
Yeah, definitely. There was label involvement, but I believe the original idea was from our guitarist Josh and our artist manager Luke from UNFD, as they go by now. And they were inspired by other bands in the past, whether it be Nine Inch Nails and other bands that have done similar things. And especially in Australia, bands to just do the stock standard album announcement, release date, video clip, put a single up, pre-order now. And we just, I guess, wanted to do something a bit different, just to, stir the pot a little bit and get people talking. Yeah,
because, you guys are a fairly young band as well, so it kind of goes hand in hand with the kind of youth of the band, embracing technology, internet as well. So I kind of thought, like, when I saw it at the time, I was like, this is really interesting. And instantly, because I hadn't heard of you guys before then, and that instantly gets me engaged, because I'm like, what does all this mean? You recorded the album with William Putney, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yep. Now his back catalogue, I was checking today, is just fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like some of the bands he's worked with. How was that working with him? Is that something you would like to do in the future?
In the future, yeah. He was awesome. One of the reasons why we approached Will is not just because he's production and production quality is amazing, but just because of his mind and the ideas that he might bring forward to our record that we might not have thought of.
Yeah.
So it's more about the producer rather than the production.
Yeah.
And he brought a lot of beautiful and great ideas to the record. His method of producing guitars was awesome, like really unorthodox stuff, but really brought out a beautiful sound at the end, with vocals as well. He had great ideas for layering and all sorts of cool stuff, and he really took what we had and transformed it to something crazy, and it was cool to see. As for the future records, I wouldn't mind working with William Putney again, but I guess it really depends on what sounds we're wanting to experiment with in the future.
Yeah. So this is, like we were saying earlier on, maybe the third, fourth date into the Never Say Die tour.
Yep, that's right.
And how are you enjoying it so far? Has it been really good?
It's been awesome, man. We started off in Wiesbaden, Germany.
Yeah.
Then we played Cologne, Germany. Last night we played, what was it again? Birmingham.
Yeah.
In Britain. And tonight's Glasgow in Scotland, and it's been an awesome tour so far. We've had, kids buying our merch, wearing t-shirts already, singing along, things like that. Even in Germany, there's been kids singing along and stuff like that. And for a band that's playing second on a lineup of 7 bands, all the way from Australia, first time in Europe, it's all we could ever ask for. So it's been going really well.
That's fantastic. So, have you played with many of the bands on the bill before? And if not, who's kind of, if you've not heard of them before, who's really kind of stood out on this tour so far?
Oh, okay.
Grabbed your attention?
Yeah. Well, for the first question, bands we've played with before, there's actually 2 other Australian bands on this tour.
Right.
Yeah, I Killed the Prom Queen and Hand of Mercy. We played with both those bands in the past, good friends of ours as well. And it's awesome to have 3 Australian bands on Euro UK tour. It's really it makes me proud, you know, where I come from, that there's a lot of bands coming out or have been out that that are, you know, sort of getting more well known across the world. And for a band that stood out on this tour, definitely 100th.
Yeah.
They're the hardcore band from the States.
Yeah.
And I'm a sucker for good, like, hardcore punk music. And they just do it so phenomenally well. And their singer Chad is just a beast. He just, you know, throws the microphone up and he just really gets into it. And they're all great dudes as well. All really great dudes.
That's cool. So, like you were saying, like especially about Australia, Australian music scene, the metal scene, seems to have really just kind of exploded recently. I mean, like we mentioned, I Killed the Prom Queen. We've been getting quite a lot of music in from bands like 12 Foot Ninja, who are just mind blowing. Circles as well. Circles is a band that we've kind of recently got into. Has the music scene always been as developed? Is it a case that we're just finally catching on to Australian music?
Yeah, of course. Well, I grew up watching Parkway Drive sort of establish the heavy music community in Australia, and in the wake of, you know, their successful career that is still ongoing 10 years later, it's really paved the way for bands like you know, us and Amity Affliction and other big Australian bands, and more like Hand of Mercy and other bands to play and actually have crowds to play in Australia. And it's really established a music community in our own country. And when you have a local community or local communities where local bands are playing, it really creates the environment for good bands to spring out, you know, and not only that, but with obviously the internet, it's helping us, you know, network and reach other parts of the world. And it's we have a lot to owe to Parkway Drive in that respect, to be honest.
Yeah, like I say, it's just well, it seems like a lot of the kind of more established countries where we would associate metal bands coming from are not necessarily treading water, but you know, there's bands still coming out, but there's nothing really grabbing our attention. It just seems like Australia seems to be putting their own spin on things, you know, taking sounds that come out and just doing it their way, which it makes the music really interesting to listen to. But you guys included, I mean, it's taking kind of established musical tropes, but you're putting your own stamp on it. You're not wanting to sound like any other band, you want to sound like yourselves. So.
That's good. That's a huge compliment, man. Thank you. I find that as well. A lot of bands in Australia are trying to like push the envelope with their music, and I noticed as well, like when you hear bands from different countries, like you can tell a British metal band, you know, when you hear it. You can tell an American metal band when you hear it, and I like to think you can tell an Australian band now when you can hear it. And so it's cool that I think Australia has its own sound as well.
Very much.
Even though we're all different, it still has its own vibe about it.
So you were mentioning some bands there. Are there any other bands from your homeland that we should be kind of keeping our radar open for in the future?
Oh, definitely. I'll always plug my mates in Heart's Wake. They just finished a tour in Europe with the Amity Affliction. In Heart's Wake, they're a great band, great friends of ours. Two more bands I'll let you know of. Up and coming Australian band called Stories. They're absolutely phenomenal. They're very heavy, very tight, very young band as well. I think they're around the age of 18 to 20. Very, very young, but they produce great music. And another up and coming band is my friend's band, Hearts Like Wolves. Awesome metalcore band, great message, very politically driven, and it's awesome.
Fantastic.
Check them out for sure.
You're out on tour. You're doing 22 dates, did you say?
Yes.
How do you cope with being away from home? Because obviously, very much like the UK, you're your own island, and there'll be things over there that you will miss when you go out on tour. How do you cope with that, being on tour for so long? Do you just kind of get in the headset that this is what I want to do as a musician?
Pretty much, man. That's a very good question. Coping with it, in general, on a very physical level, just making sure I get good rest. Because I find that if you're not well rested, if you're not eating right, it can tend to play on your mood and your emotions hugely, more than probably people give it credit for. So making sure I'm healthy is probably the first part of it. But the second part of it, the psychological, mental side of it, it is easy. I have a girlfriend. I miss her. You know, I have a family that I love. I miss them as well. But the sort of thought I keep reminding myself is, you know, I've spent the last 22 years of my life at home.
Yeah.
Pretty much, you know. And it's time for me to see the world. It's time for me to move on to bigger things with my life. And just walking down the street of Glasgow today, I couldn't believe that I was in Scotland. You know, I was just like casually walking down the street in Glasgow. It's just like I'm an Australian dude, like on the other side of the world. Like, this is awesome, and it's just it put a smile on my face. You know?
That's cool, man. That's cool. Our website, Rock and Reels, we do music, metal, punk, and rock mostly, and we also do film stuff as well. We always like to throw this out, just to put people on the spot.
Okay.
Is there anything you've seen recently you really liked, and is there anything that you saw and you thought, why did I waste my money on this?
Movies? What,
yeah, movie-wise.
Okay. Recently, what movies have I watched recently?
We always we throw people on the spot and they can't remember.
That's okay. That's okay. Because there are a lot of good movies out, and there are a lot of bad movies out as well. I want to pick a good movie, not one that's, you know, just sort of, you know, stock standard. It's a little bit of an old movie, not that old, but I watched it quite a while ago. I saw The Prestige with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, the magician one.
Yeah.
The Christopher Nolan one.
Yeah, that's actually a brilliant movie.
Really good film. Really
Brilliant
clever.
movie. Yeah, really clever. Any other movies that were really good that I've seen recently? I'm a sucker for the Matrix movies. I watch them over and over again. And a movie that I didn't like? Movie that I didn't like. What's a movie that sucked? Oh, damn. What's a movie that I really regretted watching? You know what? I actually haven't watched it. Most movies I watch because someone's either recommended them to me.
Yeah.
I can't really pick a bad movie off the top of my head.
That's not a bad thing. That's really not a bad thing at all. If you can go through a wee while without seeing a bad film, then that is not a bad thing at all.
Totally. I wish I had one, man.
No. Thank you very much for your time.
No worries.
Yep. And Singularity is out just now. It's the Northlane second album. You should go and check it out. Thanks.